Arata woke up from a nightmare where everything around him was shrouded in darkness, and he was reaching out to grab Hijiri's hand to save her. When he woke up, he accidentally had his hand on Hijiri's chest. He greeted her and asked if she had made breakfast. Before heading off to school, the two of them ate together. During breakfast, Arata asked if Hijiri was still mad at him. Hijiri told him to talk about something else, so Arata made a comment about how her chest seemed to have gotten a little bigger. Hijiri scolded him, but Arata just said that it was a good thing. He brought up an old drawing where Hijiri had written "Hijiri loves Arata," saying she looked like a little kid when she drew it. Hijiri was surprised that he still had it and said it was embarrassing. But it turned out Arata had even set it as his phone wallpaper. The two of them left for school together. Hijiri was not only Arata's cousin, but also his childhood friend. Arata thought she could be annoying and bossy, but he did not hate being around her. Hijiri commented on how clear the weather was that day. Arata looked up and saw the sun covered in black, but assumed it was just his imagination. Suddenly, a girl passed by and he heard her voice telling him to wake up or else she would kill him. Later in class, Arata was still thinking about the girl's voice from that morning. During lunch break, he went up to the school rooftop and spaced out. Hijiri found him there and said she had not known he liked spending time up there. She asked why he looked like something was on his mind. Arata asked if the sun had always been black. Hijiri was confused and told him that, as far as she knew, the sun had been black even before he was born. Arata asked if she was being serious. Hijiri told him that the world he was in was exactly the world he had wished for, a place where the two of them could be together and have fun every day. So why would it matter if the sun was black? She even said that if he stayed with her forever, she would do anything he wanted. That made Arata question whether the person in front of him was really Hijiri. To test her, he asked about his birthday, his favorite food, and where he hid his adult magazines. She answered all of them. His birthday was June 18th, his favorite food was fried chicken, and he kept the magazines under his bed. Hijiri asked if he still did not believe her and said she had never lied to him. Then Arata asked again what color the sun was. Hijiri said it was obviously black. Arata reminded her that when they were kids, she had drawn it red. He was sure that Hijiri had never lied to him, so he started wondering who the girl in front of him really was and where the real Hijiri had gone. Hijiri laughed and said that Arata had backed her into a corner. She admitted she never expected him to figure out just from that drawing. Suddenly, a girl fired a shot at Hijiri. Thankfully, she managed to activate his shield in time. Arata realized that it was the same girl he had seen that morning. She introduced herself as Lilith. Arata asked why she was wearing something that looked like an assassin's outfit, and Lilith explained it was actually a battle uniform for mages. Arata was totally confused about what was going on. Hijiri snapped her fingers and changed everything in front of him. The world around them started to fall apart. Hijiri told him that this was actually the world he had been living in all along. Lilith explained that 3 days ago, a massive gravitational disturbance of unknown origin had been detected in that area. The incident was known as a breakdown phenomenon. The entire city had been swallowed up by a gravitational quake. Arata held his head in pain as the memories came flooding back. Hijiri asked if he had finally remembered what happened. Arata recalled the moment when the sunlight turned black and the dark light swallowed everything. That was when Hijiri gave him a magic book and asked him to save the world to make her wish come true. She had asked him to wake up in the morning after she left to make sure he ate 3 times a day and to keep himself clean. She kissed Arata, and not long after that, her body began to fade. She told him not to forget about her. Back then, Arata had no idea what was going on or where everyone had gone. All he knew was that he was holding the magic book and wished for everything to go back to normal. It suddenly hit him. He was the one who caused it all. Hijiri admitted that she had been asked to grant Arata's wish, so she created a world that matched exactly what he wanted. Lilith was also shocked as she had been sent by the school to investigate the phenomenon. What she found was a city that was never supposed to exist. Hijiri said it was no trouble at all for her to create it. According to Lilith, the magic book was incredibly dangerous. If anything went wrong, the damage could spread, possibly creating an entirely different world. A regular magic book could never do something like that. Lilith gave Arata 2 options: either hand over the book and erase the fake world, or refuse and be killed on the spot, since no one else wanted that false world except him. If he chose the first option, Lilith promised he could go back to living a peaceful life, but they would destroy the book and wipe his memories of Hijiri and the others. If he refused, she would kill him right then and there. Arata laughed and asked why he would want to live if it meant forgetting everything, especially Hijiri. He asked where the real Hijiri was and what had happened to her. The fake Hijiri explained that the real one was still alive, while she was just a shadow projection of her. The real Hijiri was somewhere across space and time. Once Arata realized that Hijiri was still alive, he said he would not give up the magic book or accept death. Instead, he chose a third option. Arata then followed Lilith to Biblia Academy to learn magic. The magic school was located deep in the countryside. Lilith was still surprised that Arata had been let off so easily. Nothing like that had ever happened before. Arata had previously asked to become a mage, believing that since all mages had magic books, that meant he could become one too. Lilith had never heard of something like that, but considering he had created an entire world, it made sense. Arata was confident in his choice to become a mage, no matter how small the chance might be. While walking through the academy halls, Arata found out that Lilith was actually a teacher at the school. He asked her how old she was, and she replied that she was the same age as him. She showed him his classroom and reminded him to treat everyone with respect. Lilith introduced Arata to the class and he greeted everyone. Out of nowhere, Selena asked Arata what kind of girls he liked. Arata replied that he appreciated all kinds of personalities, but what mattered most to him was someone who was kind and beautiful on the inside. Selena asked again if it was really true that Arata could create a new world, even though that kind of power was supposedly only possible for someone on the level of a demon lord. Arata then asked if there was truly no one else who could do something like that. Suddenly, the whole class erupted in excitement, saying that they had a future demon lord candidate right there in their class. Rumors started flying around the school about Arata, the new student who supposedly had magic as powerful as a demon lord. Selena had deliberately spread the news to everyone, even claiming that Arata had the ability to create his own world. That same day, the headmaster called Arata to his office. Lilith mentioned that because of the rumor, they had not been able to get anything done in class. Arata just shrugged it off, saying the rumor actually sounded kind of cool. The headmaster welcomed Arata on behalf of the school and explained that Biblia Academy was actually a super-secret organization that trained mages. The school was backed by governments from all over the world and handled unsolved cases involving magic. At Biblia Academy, mages were known as magus. Arata asked if becoming a mage meant he could bring Hijiri back. The headmaster said he could not guarantee anything, but magic had the potential to make the impossible possible. In other words, whether something could happen or not really depended on the individual. Lilith added that there were no shortcuts. Only those who work hard and stayed disciplined would succeed. Arata reminded them that the headmaster had just said magic could make the impossible happen. Lilith did not have an answer for that. The headmaster confirmed what he had said and went on to explain that the school had 7 top students, each one outstanding in their field, who were called the Trinity 7. They were like boss-level characters in a game, and Lilith was one of them. Arata acknowledged that Lilith certainly looked the part, though Lilith insisted that appearance did not mean anything. The headmaster told Arata that if he could get to know the Trinity 7 and earn their trust, he might begin to understand what it truly meant to be a mage. After they left the headmaster's office, Lilith told Arata not to take everything the headmaster said so seriously. While walking through the hallway, Arata suddenly sensed someone's presence above him. The girl dropped down from the ceiling, realizing that Arata had noticed her. She landed gracefully and approached him. Arata was impressed and said she looked like a ninja. The girl introduced herself as Leifi. She actually was a ninja. Arata asked if that meant she wasn't a mage. Leifi explained that ninja arts, astrology, and even more intimate forms of magic all fell under the category of sorcery. Arata was surprised by the last part, but Lilith quickly told him it wasn't any of his business. Lilith then pointed out that Leifi was also one of the Trinity 7. Arata said Leifi was pretty amazing. Leifi playfully claimed she knew everything, from deadly combat techniques to more risky tricks. Lilith quickly stepped in, asking Leifi to stop talking like that. Leifi laughed and said she was only joking. She added that she found Arata amusing and kind of cute. Arata replied that he was just acting normal, but Lilith said he was anything but normal. Curious, Arata asked what the other members of the Trinity 7 were like. Leifi told him they were currently out on a transformation mission. She pointed outside at 2 girls, Akio and Mira. According to Leifi, when it came to raw ability, Mira was said to be even more skilled than Lilith, and in terms of offense, Akio was practically unbeatable. Arata was surprised to find out that all the members were girls. According to Leifi, magic is rooted in research on thoughts and emotions, which is why girls are generally more suited to being mages. Arata then asked if that meant being more emotional, like being honest about one's desires, was better. Lilith quickly shut that down, telling him that wasn't the case and that he needed to keep himself in check with things like that. Leifi and Arata laughed at Lilith, teasing her about how she seemed a bit too interested in that kind of topic. Annoyed, Lilith smacked Arata and stormed off. Arata only then realized that Lilith was actually more emotional than he thought. Leffy pointed out that she had never seen Lilith that expressive before. Usually, she was more of the calm and collected type. So the fact that she acted like that toward Arata meant he might actually be someone special to her. That night, Arata was lying in bed in his room trying to figure out where his grimoire had gone. Out of nowhere, the book appeared, floating right near his neck. The grimoire asked if he was surprised. Arata replied that after everything that happened that day, not much could surprise him anymore. The book suggested that he take a bath, saying it'd be refreshing, especially after such a long day. Arata made his way to the boys' bathroom, planning to soak in the tub. To his shock, he spotted Hijiri already in there. Trying to keep it cool, Arata greeted her casually. As he started washing his hair, Hijiri suddenly told him that he was using the wrong bottle. It wasn't shampoo. She held up the actual shampoo bottle to show him. Arata freaked out, shouting that she was the one who should be screaming out of surprise. Instead, Hijiri calmly mimicked his scream in his soft voice. Thrown off by how unfazed Hijiri seemed, Arata froze. Then Hijiri blurted out something totally unexpected, mentioning her size. Completely panicked, Arata sprinted out of the bathroom, yelling the whole way. Lilith, seeing the commotion, asked what was going on, but she quickly turned around after realizing Arata wasn't wearing a shirt. That, she said, was totally inappropriate. Arata couldn't help thinking that Hijiri's reaction had been nothing like Lilith's. Lilith had the kind of response you'd expect from someone who just saw a guy without clothes. Arata told her that Hijiri had been in the bathroom, but Lilith asked if he met Erin. She explained that Erin was one of the Trinity Seven, and honestly, she thought Erin looked a lot like Hijiri. Lilith went to find Erin and reminded her that she was in the boys' bathroom. Erin had gone in on purpose, thinking there wouldn't be any guys there. When Lilith told her that someone was already inside, Erin didn't seem to care in the slightest. After getting dressed, Arata called for his grimoire again. The book asked if he wasn't happy after all. Most guys might be. But Arata admitted he didn't know how to feel. The grimoire explained that while Erin might have the same face as Hijiri, what was inside her was completely different. Just getting to know her was already something meaningful. Arata started to realize that Erin might be connected to Hijiri in some way. And the Trinity Seven, they were probably going to be a huge part of his life. Suddenly, Lilith shouted from outside the room, telling Arata to please put some pants on. That day, Lilith was teaching in Arata's class. Everyone seemed to be watching Arata closely, and he couldn't figure out why. When he asked Lilith about it, she got no idea either. Erin, who sat next to Arata, had been keeping a constant eye on him. She followed him everywhere he went. During lunch break, Erin sat directly in front of him while he was trying to enjoy his meal. She kept tailing him around, even following him toward the bathroom. Arata tried to stop her from entering the men's room, but Erin casually said she didn't mind. He quickly pointed out that he minded, and clearly, it was bothering him. He asked her why she had been following him around all day and watching his every move. Erin responded by asking if she really did that. That just made Arata even more frustrated. Erin asked if he didn't like jokes. He told her it wasn't that he hated jokes, but there were limits. Erin said she was keeping an eye on him because he was the future Demon Lord. She explained that it was only natural for her to watch over someone who would be her future partner. Then she walked off, saying he'd probably understand soon enough. Later that day, Arata found Selena, Leffy, and Lilith hanging out in his room. He asked why they were all there. Selena said she wanted to interview him. Leffy was just curious to see what his room looked like. Lilith, on the other hand, said she couldn't leave the girls alone in a boy's room, especially since she was still technically a teacher, even if she was the same age as Arata. Selena started her interview, mentioning that the future Demon Lord was the center of attention at school. Arata agreed to be interviewed. When asked about his favorite food, he said it was fried chicken. Leffy offered to make him some, even joking that she'd add a love potion to it. Surprisingly, Arata didn't say no. Selena asked if he was okay with that, even if there was a love potion in it. He said he didn't mind, it wasn't like the fried chicken he usually had. Then she asked who he'd go after first, since eating the chicken might make him go wild. Arata replied that he'd probably go for whoever had the biggest chest. Lilith was clearly annoyed by his answer. Arata apologized and said he was just joking. He then asked them to tell him more about magic. Lilith agreed to help. Selena whispered to Leffy that Lilith seemed like a surprisingly caring teacher. Leffy responded that when it came to anything related to classwork, Lilith would always be gentle. That led both of them to start imagining something suggestive between Lilith and Arata. Lilith quickly shut that down, saying it was never going to happen. Selena and Leifi teased that Lilith looked especially cute and flustered when being teased. Arata then asked Lilith about the magic book she was holding. She explained that it was the Astel manuscript. She found out about it from the headmaster, and it turned out to be a legendary magic book said to hold information about another world. Arata finally understood just how important the book really was. The whole reason he came to this magic school was to follow the clues from that book and hopefully find Hijiri. Lilith told him it made sense that he didn't know about the manuscript. It had always been considered just a legend. Lilith went on to explain that what a mage needed was a research concept known as a thema, and that the 7 deadly sins serve as their archives. Suddenly, the room went dark. At first, they thought it was a power outage, but the magic book announced that they were actually trapped inside a barrier. The book began to glow. In the confusion, Arata accidentally landed on top of Selena, and his hand ended up on Lilith's chest. Lilith screamed and immediately slapped him. Neither the door handle nor the window would open. They were really stuck inside the barrier, a miniature version of another world created by Arata himself. Hearing Arata talk so casually with a magic book, Selena was amazed that he could discuss something so incredible without any hesitation. Arata explained that since he already understood what was going on, there was no point in freaking out. Lilith said the barrier had cut them off from their dimension, and that it was the first time she had seen anything like it even after all her years at the academy. The magic book mentioned that the current game seemed to be about figuring out how to escape from their situation. Arata suspected that the book actually knew how to get out, but unfortunately, it went back to sleep, telling them to just let it know once they'd solved the puzzle. Before it dozed off, Arata asked the book not to turn off its light. Even though they were all trapped, no one panicked, thankfully. According to Arata, panicking was pointless. What mattered was doing whatever they could. He tried smashing through the trap's wall with a chair, but the chair shattered. Arata brushed it off, saying it wasn't a big deal. Selena wondered if he was doing something completely irrational. Arata explained that the book had told him to think that way because magic wasn't limited by logic. So doing something illogical might be the key to breaking out. But it turned out he was wrong. Selena started wondering who set this up and why. Leifi guessed that Arata might be a main target. Arata thought whoever was behind it was probably testing his power. The problem was, it was hard to prove anything when he couldn't really do much. Still, although it was all vague, he had a hunch who was behind it. For now, though, he was willing to play along. They began checking every corner of the room. At one point, Arata even suggested they just give up and take a nap. Selena quickly reminded him that giving up wasn't an option. She also pointed out something important Arata had overlooked. There wasn't a bathroom in the room. Arata told everyone not to worry, saying that if anything happened, he wouldn't say a word about it. Suddenly, Lilith looked like she was struggling to hold something in, but she didn't say anything. Seeing this, both Leifi and Selena panicked. They were running out of time and had to get out of the barrier fast. Arata joked that if a hot teacher like Lilith had an accident, it would definitely ruin the vibe in a weird and dangerous way. Selena tried to encourage Lilith to hang in there. But not long after, both Leifi and Selena started showing the same signs. They were clearly fighting the urge as well. With no other option, Arata decided to call on the magic book again. It was still half asleep, so Arata pretended that he had already figured out how to escape. Leifi and Selena followed his lead and claimed the same thing. Then Arata told the book they didn't need its help anymore. Lilith thought that kind of cheap trick wouldn't work on a legendary magic book. But suddenly, the book spoke up and asked if they had noticed something strange under the bed. Hearing that, Arata immediately instructed the others to check underneath. As soon as they sensed a magic source under the bed, Lilith didn't hesitate. She blasted it. The magic source was destroyed and the door finally unlocked. Arata wasted no time telling the 3 of them to head to the bathroom. The magic book commented that Arata was smarter than it thought. He even managed to fool a book like that. And clearly, solving the puzzle in that way wasn't the logical route at all. The book said it was really looking forward to the thema Arata would choose next. Arata then asked how to make the most out of a research thema. The magic book seemed surprised that he didn't already know. Just then, Erin appeared in front of the room and explained that a thema was a research concept that consumed a wizard's full focus. It involved carrying out everything they'd learned in their research, and a wizard could cast their magic using that thema as a spell. Arata guessed the barrier must have been Erin's, since she showed up at the perfect moment. Erin admitted she didn't think Arata would be able to break through with such a cheap trick. But Arata believed it was actually a clever and courageous win. Erin asked if he was mad at her. Arata smiled and replied that thanks to her, he got to witness a pretty strange but interesting scene involving 3 attractive girls trying to hold it in. He even thanked her for it. Erin asked Arata if he had a habit of peeking on girls while they were using the bathroom. If that was the case, she said she'd just go right there. Arata called her a total maniac. Suddenly, the magic book chimed in, saying Arata always acted like a good guy whenever he was around Erin. But Arata figured the book was just messing with him. The book then asked if it was because Erin looked like Hijiri, and Arata admitted he hadn't really thought about that. Erin greeted the magic book and introduced herself. They hit it off pretty quickly, and she ended up borrowing the book. Arata couldn't deny it. Erin really did remind him of Hijiri. Curious, he asked Erin why she had sealed off his room. Turns out it was because Arata was being referred to as the Demon Lord candidate. Confused, Arata wondered why everyone kept calling him that and asked what exactly a Demon Lord was supposed to be. Erin explained that it meant he was destined to be the king of those who walk the path of destruction, and that was him. She also mentioned that the headmaster knew about it too. Right then, the headmaster suddenly appeared in front of them. But instead of acknowledging him, Arata asked Erin if they could go somewhere more private to talk in detail. Surprisingly, they completely ignored the headmaster, even though he had just used a flashy technique to make an entrance. Arata and Erin walked into a room where Lilith was already waiting. Without warning, Erin casually asked Arata if he would be interested in sharing a bed before marriage. Arata responded by saying it was a bold idea, leaving Lilith completely stunned by the unexpected conversation. Arata then told Lilith that her presence helped him stay calm and asked if she would stay with him a little longer. Seeing that, Erin accused Arata of being unfaithful to her. Arata just smiled and joked that having them both around did not sound like a bad thing. That earned him a sharp slap from Lilith. Trying to shift the focus, Arata asked Erin why she had locked them inside his room. Lilith was surprised to learn that Erin was behind it. Erin explained that she did not mean to trap anyone, she just did not want to waste time. She added that the headmaster had told her a strong emotional conflict could trigger a major magical phenomenon in the Demon Lord candidate. Arata suggested they go talk to the headmaster, but Lilith revealed she had already dealt with him by tying him up and tossing him into the waste incinerator, since she thought he would only make things worse. Still confused, Lilith asked why the situation needed to escalate into a destructive magical event. Erin said she wanted to show them something. She told Arata to place his hand on hers, and a strange magical force began to take shape. Erin linked it to the Ira archive to activate her magic Thema. Her Thema was Ruina, which meant destruction. Arata suddenly felt a surge of pain as Erin broke through the magical restraints of his spellbook. She forced its limits, making it impossible for Arata to hold back the power inside him. His magic book then asked Erin if she was trying to push Arata's magic beyond its limits. Lilith began to worry. If this continued, the entire school might be affected by a destructive magical reaction. Not long after, objects all around the school began breaking down into tiny particles. Lilith realized this was the phenomenon they had been warned about, and it looked extremely dangerous. Erin explained that destruction was the core of her Thema. Since Arata was closest to Ruina, she believed it was their responsibility as mages to study this kind of magic, no matter how extreme it seemed. Even she had not expected the effect to be so powerful. Meanwhile, Selena approached Leffy and asked what was happening. Leffy guessed it had to be a breakdown phenomenon, especially since even the sun appeared to be darkening. The headmaster, tied up elsewhere, was in disbelief that Erin had actually triggered the event. If it kept spreading, the entire academy could collapse, and he knew he could not allow that to happen. The magical energy kept growing. Erin was shocked by how much power had been unleashed. Lilith realized that if this did not stop, the damage might not be limited to just the school, it could reach far beyond that. She aimed her weapon at Arata, preparing to stop him, but Erin stepped between them. Lilith asked her to move, but Erin refused. She could not stand by while someone hurt the man she considered her future partner. Lilith reminded her that the destruction could take out everything, including Erin herself. But Erin insisted. To her, the purpose of magic was to explore the unknown, even if it meant stepping into something as dangerous as destruction. Just then, Mira and Akio suddenly broke through the wall, calling in a surprise entrance. They had just returned from trying to contain another breakdown event elsewhere, only to find their own school under threat. Mira was a top Brumoyer security officer, and Akio held the third highest rank in that division. Lilith asked why they were back so soon, since their mission was still underway. Akio answered that it had already been wrapped up. Suddenly, the destructive energy stopped. Mira had used her own powerful magic to neutralize it. Her Thuma was Eustitia, linked to Superbia, the Archive of Pride. Mira stated that she would not allow any form of magical corruption to spread. She then ordered Akio to eliminate Arata, since he was the source of the incident. Akio activated her magic and prepared to strike. Lilith stepped forward and told her not to do it. Erin tried to move but realized she could not. Akio told them not to take it personally. This was just part of her duty. She was there to eliminate anything that threatened balance, and Arata was currently seen as that threat. Without hesitation, she launched a powerful kick directly at him.